Welcome back. Before we get to the closing statements, one final question. You only have 30 seconds to answer this one. Do you believe the Second Amendment allows for restrictions on any types of firearms a person can own? And can or should we ban assault rifles? 30 seconds, Mr. Ashford.
No, I don't think we should ban assault weapons. But I do think we should have background checks, and we have them in Nebraska. I think we should, the no-fly list and the terrorist watch list, those people should be, there should be background checks done. Between 2004 and 2014, 91% of the people on the terrorist watch list were able to purchase firearms. I think that's a public safety issue. The vast majority of Americans support that.
Thank you, Mr. Ashford. Restriction on any kind of firearms and the assault weapons?
No, I would defend the Second Amendment. I've defended our rights for 30 years, serving the Air Force. I'll defend this one. And one thing I'd point out about the no-fly list, Ted Kennedy was on it. So we need a due process. So if someone's on that no-fly list wrongfully, they have a way to get out of it. Brad should have supported that because that's important for our rights. The Fifth Amendment should be protected with this no-fly list.
All right, it's time now for closing statements. Each candidate has 90 seconds. Mr. Ashford, you're first.
Thank you, and thank you again, both of you, and thank you to the World Herald and the KMTV. Everyone needs to get out and vote, and this is going to help us do that. You know, I've had a life, and my family's had a life of public service dating back in Nebraska to 1856, when my father's family came from Ireland, my mother's family came from Sweden in the 1870s. Public service is in my DNA, and it's in the DNA of all Nebraskans. I had the opportunity to serve in the Nebraska legislature for 16 years. That was, in my mind, public service. During that time, I owned a business, I ran a law firm, I raised a family. The Nebraska legislature taught me many things. The one thing it really taught me was Nebraskans have a unique way of being. The unicameral legislature is incredibly unique. There is no other place like it. There are no parties. People don't sit one side or the other. People don't even get voted on based on the partisan designation that they may have. It's the Nebraska way. When I ran for Congress, I said I would go to Washington and I would take the Nebraska way to Washington. I've worked with Republicans on incredibly important pieces of legislation. Only 3 Democrats have voted with Republicans more than I have in the time in the 114th Congress. I have been ranked the 6th most bipartisan member of the United States Congress. Those aren't just things that I'm throwing out there. Those are factual. And I will continue to go back to Washington if I am elected, and I would appreciate your vote and do exactly the same thing.
Mr. Bacon, you have 90 seconds for your closing argument.
I want to thank Craig and Michael for doing this, and thanks Brad for being here as well. I'm running for Congress because I love our country, and I want to continue to defend it. I think I bring in very useful experience. But our country right now is struggling. We have $19.5 trillion debt. We have a regulatory environment that's crushing the small business community. We have a broken tax code, and we have a national security strategy that's broke. And I want to be a leader that comes to Washington, working in a bipartisan way, that moves the ball down the field on all of these core issues. Career politicians are not getting it done. And also, we're going to bring useful experience there. 4 deployments to the Middle East, 30 years in NATO. My time in the military will be very useful as the second most senior veteran in Congress. Let me talk about bipartisanship. Brad keeps mentioning it. It was a bipartisan, quote, Democrat who gave us the tie-breaking vote that gave us Obamacare. It was another bipartisan Democrat that gave us the tie-breaking vote that went against a balanced budget amendment. We know when the chips are down, Brad's going to be marching right behind Nancy Pelosi, and we can do better. Bipartisanship for me is working across the aisle to move the ball down the field on those core issues facing our country. I look forward to serving you. I'm going to work hard for your vote, and I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bacon. That'll have to be the last word for the night. We'd like to thank both of our candidates for participating tonight and for your willingness to run for public office.
Also, a special thanks to our viewers, listeners, and readers. For more analysis on this debate and to re-watch the debate in the coming days, you can go to KMTV.com or Omaha.com. We encourage you all to vote in the election. Don't forget, it's Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you for joining us. Good night.